me. And that's the end of our lesson for today. Chris, you had a point. Wayne, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you to start. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'd try to relate it to what we can expect in our ministries as we go out. And of course, I had the privilege of working in the ministry before coming here. And I don't know how many times went home to my wife and say, I quit. I'm going to sit down and write a letter of resignation tonight. I'm going to send it out. And, and of course, with some time of prayer and reasoning from my wife especially, I came to my senses. But, we could find ourselves as well doing the same thing.
Absolutely, you can. And many of you will. Many of you will literally sit at a computer and start writing out a letter of resignation only to hopefully eventually shelve that and keep pressing forward. Guys, the argument, the complaining here goes to a deeper issue. Do you think they were really, truly, do you think this was just a meat issue? What was truly at the heart? Jesus was the master teacher. One thing you need to learn from Jesus as you're reading the New Testament, whenever Jesus would have a confrontation with somebody, he was great at cutting through the garbage and getting to the heart of what that person really was trying to get at. For instance, when he was asked about the resurrection, he didn't circle the runway several times. He said, you do err in the resurrection. He knew exactly what they were trying to do. They were trying to set him up. And he answered their question in such a way that it would reveal their heart. What do you think was on the hearts of the Israelites at this time? Was it strictly about meat?
No.
Or did it have something to do with trusting that God could take care of all of their needs?
I think that's exactly what it is. I think they was eating from the table of uncertainty. Just didn't know. The word manna means what is it? And they was eating from the table of uncertainty. They've been used to what they had before. At least they knew what it was, didn't know where it was going, or didn't know how long it was going to take. So yeah,
right.
It was uncertainty.
So you got this group of people. They're grumbling. They're complaining. Had you been Moses? Let me call on somebody. Let me pester somebody I haven't heard from much. Shane and Justin. Had you been Moses, how would you act?
The situation?
In this situation.
Well, it's kind of hard to say because Moses really does seem to have reached his wit ends here. The people are like acting like children. They're acting like babies. He's like, God, why is it my responsibility to take care of all these people like children? I'm not their mother. Please do something about it. Almost like, you have the picture of the crow-breaking mother complaining to the father. It's like, do something about your children. They're not my children. They're your children when they're bad.
Okay.
I can't think of much. The only thing, there's not much Moses could have done in this situation. I can't really think of anything.
Okay. Let me throw this up, Mr. Cooper.
I would ask for the fires to come back. Send a couple more of them, then
Okay, I would err with him in a way. Here's what I think we're getting a taste of, guys. Did Moses have the knowledge and the power to feed these people if he asked for it? I mean, think about it. Moses had through Moses, all of the plagues took place, did they not?
Mm-hmm.
So what is food when you can turn rivers into blood, you can smite people, you can have infestations? I mean, ultimately, he knew the power was there. I think we see a couple of things happening here. Number one, I think, and everybody, I think all humans have experienced this. At our house, we call it crankiness, where if you're tired, you're not getting enough sleep, your routine is thrown out of kilter, things are not exactly going your way, people get cranky. And so sometimes, instead of using a level head, we just strike out. Had I been Moses, and of course, obviously I'm not, but had I been Moses, I think I would have started out by saying, hey, God, I'm going to raise my rod any chance we can get some sirloins or ribeyes or fillets or something. But instead, what did he do? He complained. He joined with the group. Have we ever seen that as humans? When somebody starts to complain, is it easy to jump in there with them and complain? Absolutely it is. So, was there another way? Absolutely there was. Yeah, JT.
Maybe Moses should have asked God, how can we handle this situation here? See what
Exactly.
God would say.
Exactly. I'm your vessel. You used me before. How can we get through this problem? Because what I think this is, and what I'm trying to get across to you all is, this shows a little bit of Moses' lack of faith. Do you see that? As he kind of joins in with them saying, look, I didn't bear these people. They didn't come through my loins. I didn't take them up to nurse them. Fix this problem or just kill me right now. Rather than Moses doing what Moses should have done, which is trust and relied on God and say, hey, I know you're Jehovah. You can do everything. Can you please address this situation? Chris.
But at the same time, Moses is a man. And, that's the way God made us. I see it in another way as well. I understand what you guys are saying, but he knew who to go to. When he was frustrated, when he felt like he was at his wit's end, he expressed himself to God. And maybe that in itself showed that he does have faith. I mean, I understand, in both ways.
He did go to God, but I would argue that he went to God in the 11th hour rather than going to God in the 5th or 6th hour. Does that make sense? Rather than going to God when the problem starts and when the grumbling starts and getting it fixed, it's kind of like that pot that is steaming. Moses waited until the steam had really built up before he finally turned to God, rather than when the heat is first turned on and it starts to put a little bit of moisture all around the pot. When he sees, hey, if this isn't addressed, we better fix this, or it's going to be a problem.
I agree, but at the same time, I see that we're going to find ourselves more often than not doing what Moses did.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that God is still there, just fine.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very easy to be a Monday afternoon quarterback in hindsight and look at all this and say, well, this is what I would have done. Obviously, Moses handled himself very well. But we have the opportunity to look in hindsight, look in God's Word, look at this situation, critically evaluate it, and what we see is a camp of people who's starting to come undone because of unrest, unsettled. Their routine has been thrown off, and it even infects Moses. And so I want you guys to mentally be trying to wrap your hands around what it would have been like to have physically been there as all of this pressure is building up, people are grumbling, complaining, and yet they haven't really even kicked off their journey yet. I mean, they're fixing to take a long hike. Yes, sir.
Two things. One, you have to see what God is bringing the people into so he can bring them out of. He brought them out of all this luxurious eating so that they can really appreciate what's coming in the future. The land, milk and honey, where they don't have to even work for what they're going to eat. And then also, I forgot what I was going to say, but also, there was something about the children of Israel. I'll bring it back when I think of it.
All right, hold on to that. And think about this. All of you guys in there are probably going to deal at some point in time with somebody who is addicted to either drugs, alcohol, pornography, etc. On many of those occasions, is that addict ready to give up their drug of choice, whether it is booze, drugs, alcohol, porn, whatever? Are they ready to give up their addiction before they hit bottom?
Most are not, no.
Most of them are not. Most of them literally need to hit bottom and realize, I can't do this without God's help and maybe even the help of some other people. And very rarely do you find somebody that's strong enough, if they are truly addicted to, say, crystal meth, that can just look at it and say, you know what, I'm done with this. Most of them need to hit bottom, literally either in the gutter or have their home taken away or whatever it is. And I think that's kind of what we're getting a little taste of right here. These people, they've been brought out of Egypt, and God is wanting them to rely on them. Because, if you think about it, could he have given them quail right up front with the manna? Yeah. But again, he's teaching them. He's teaching them to rely on him and to know that he is going to see them through this thing.
Question. They had livestock and everything else, so why weren't they eating some of that?
Good question. I suspect part of it had to do with the fact that they just initiated a sacrificial system. And if you know a whole lot about their sacrificial system, they were going through animals at a pretty good rate. The other thing is, how many animals could they have had given the fact that they had to leave Egypt with basically the clothes on their back? And they were wandering. Now, yes, they stopped at Mount Sinai for a while. So maybe they were able to get a few. And they start growing these creatures. But realize they didn't come out of Egypt carrying massive, huge flocks. They had to basically take it and leave. So it's from this point forward where they start building up their numbers. Does that make sense? Jared?
Brad, this isn't the first time we've seen them being fed by manna, though, is it?
No.
So they're sort of grumbling because they're just wondering when it's all going to end. Is that right? They want to get proper food and...
Yeah, I mean, I could see a little bit of the, man, we got to eat the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a guy, I'll go ahead and admit it to you. I'm a guy that, unless it's a certain type of leftover, I don't do leftovers.
I can see that.
I do leftovers for, like, lasagna, because I think it tastes better the second day. I do leftovers for, certain things that I like, maybe like chili. I can handle that. But normal foods, I don't do leftovers. My wife, it drives her crazy because, she cooks great meals. She always puts whatever's left over in a little Tupperware thing, and I look at it and I think, well, there's y'all's lunch tomorrow. I can kind of see where these people are coming from. You mean we got to eat manna again? Come on. You can only put hot sauce on manna so many times and change the taste. Loud.
Yeah, he was saying that they left with just kind of like the shirts on their back when the Lord in Exodus 13 and 12 caused the Egyptians to see favor on them. And plus the rabble took out great flocks and herds of livestock.
Exodus 13.
12:36. Okay. And they took all their wealth from them. God put it on the hearts to give that to them, the Egyptians. So they had quite a bit. They had more than what they normally would have.
Okay, now don't confuse gold kind of wealth with the kind of wealth we're talking about here. Did the Israelites take from the Egyptians things like their gold, their earrings, some of that kind of stuff? Absolutely.
Yes.
But back up for me why you would say they took out a huge amount of livestock.
I'm looking at 38. 38, is that what it is? Rabble of the non-Israelites went with them along with great flocks and herds of livestock. Let me look in your version.
My version.
Yeah, that's my simple read.
James Smith says that if all the flocks and herds were to be slaughtered and all the fish in the sea were caught, that would not be enough meat for this crowd of people.
Yeah. Well, Larry, here would be my immediate comeback on that. Let's say that you had 500 sheep. Or I'll give you 10,000 sheep. Let's say you had 10,000 sheep. A couple of things you got to keep in mind. Number one, those sheep are going to restrict how quickly you can move around. They are going to very much play a role in how fast you're able to journey and get away and etc. So did they take animals with them? Obviously the text says they had flocks. But would I say that it's this massive, huge herd that's going to be able to feed them? No, you got 2 million people.
Yeah,
What's 10,000 sheep and 2 million people?
I agree with that, Brad. I was just going, because I would think your first answer, they had just implemented the rule of sacrificing, so they had to definitely do inventory on what they had. They may not have had that much, but to say they left with nothing, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was going off of.
They left with how about this? They left with a little something.
A little more than what they had in their possession to begin with. Because the rabble came along, and also they, like I said, they were able to take things that wasn't theirs that was given to them. So.
Okay. What were animals used for back then?
Money.
Pretty much everything. They were used for transportation, food, made things out of them.
So you've got clothing, you got tents, you got food, you got transportation like oxen. So would it make sense you are going to have some animals with you? Absolutely. Did they have a huge surplus? Apparently not. Because I'm sure if they did, it'd be one thing if I had a whole flock of oxen out there and we say, you know what, I'm tired of traveling, let's just go kill a couple, kill Bessie and Bessie's friend over here. Even if they kill Bessie and Bessie's friend, you realize you haven't even fed one of the sons of Levi.
See, that's what I was
2 oxen would not feed 52,000 or 5,200 people. How many cows would you have to kill in order to feed that many people? 5,200 people. Well, you figure the average steer weighs how much?
1,000 pounds.
Okay, round numbers, 1,000 pounds. You cut off the fat, you cut out the bones, you're down to roughly 600 pounds of meat. How many people can you feed with that?
Depends upon how hungry they are.
Depends on how hungry they are. Somebody's eating a pound of meat. That's a serious hamburger. Even if you did a quarter pounder, guys. You see the numbers, how they exponentially just grow? And yet you got this massive group of people. The fact that God was providing manna for that many people should be amazing to you. So they complain. Let's get back to, I know you guys love taking me down rabbit trails. Let's get back to how God fixes the problem. Verse 31, now a wind went out from the Lord and brought quail from the sea, left them fluttering near the camp, about a day's journey on the side and about a day's journey on the other side, all around the camp and about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground. The people stayed up all that day, all night, all the next day, and they gathered the quail. He who gathered the least gathered 10 omers. And they spread them out for themselves all around the camp. So did God provide for them? Absolutely, He did. But then what happens? Look at verse 33. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was aroused against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a great plague. So He called the name of that place Kibroth Hattaavah, because there they buried the people who had yielded to the craving. Check back with me at verse 20. End of verse 20. The Lord who is among you have wept before him, saying, why did we ever come out of Egypt? Moses said, the people whom I am among are 600,000 men on foot, yet you have said, I will give them meat, and they may eat for a whole month. Shall flocks and herds be slaughtered for them to provide enough? Or shall all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them to provide enough for them? And the Lord said to Moses, has the Lord's arm been shortened? Now you shall see whether what I say will happen to you or not. So Moses went out, he told the people the words of the Lord, gathered 70 men of the elders of the people, placed them around the tabernacle. The Lord came down in the cloud, spoke to him, took the Spirit that was upon him, placed the same upon the 70 elders, and it happened, when the Spirit rested upon them, that they prophesied, although they never did so again. 2 men remained in that camp. The name of one was Eldad, the name of the other was Medad. The Spirit rested upon them, etc. So we got a situation where these people are griping and complaining. God says, I'm going to take care of you. He sends quail. Why did he kill the people who had already chose to eat the quail?
I'm not sure if I understand exactly what's happening here, Brad. These people have gone out, they've picked up dead quail, and as they've eaten the quail, it's killed them. Is that right?
Not dead quail.
They were alive.
Because read the text. It says all around the camp and about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground. So you got quail just fluttering around.
They ate the meat before it was time to eat it.
Well,
Had God told them what he expected?
Did it still have the blood in it? Did they just grab a quail and chew it?
Could have had blood in it, but remember, did he set specifics on manna?
Mm-hmm.
Did he tell them how much to gather, when to gather it, how to gather it, when it was no good, how much to eat? And yet they just run out and they go grab them some quail. So again, God here is basically trying to convince them, look, I can take care of you. I can do it without any problem. Look, here's a bunch of quail. Oh yeah, and by the way, you're going to do it the way I tell you to do it. So all along, you're seeing these people who are disrespectful, disobedient. Starting in Numbers 12, and this is right on the heels of this event, you've got Aaron and Miriam arguing. God here has been speaking pretty exclusively to Moses. Again, remember what dispensation we're in. Okay? We're in the Mosaic age. God is speaking to Moses directly. In fact, several times today we've already read text where it says, and I'm paraphrasing, this is the Brad Harrub paraphrase, Moses says, hold on, let me talk to God and see what he says about this. God tells him what he thinks about this. Then Moses tells the people. Aaron decides, I want a piece of the action. Why should Moses be the only guy that gets that? Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. For he had married an Ethiopian woman. Here you got Moses. You got this Ethiopian woman. So they said, has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also? And the Lord heard it. And the man of Moses was humble, more than all the men who were on the face of the earth. Put an asterisk by verse 3. If you want a quality of a person, if you are looking to please the Lord, humility needs to be at the very top. Suddenly the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, come out, you three, to the tabernacle of meeting. So the three came out. The Lord came down in a pillar of cloud, stood in the door of the tabernacle, called Aaron and Miriam, and they both went forward. Then he said, hear now my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak to him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful. In all my house I speak with him face to face, even plainly, and not in dark sayings. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? So the anger of the Lord was aroused against them. He departed. When the cloud departed from above the tabernacle, suddenly Miriam became leprous, turned white as snow. Aaron turned towards Miriam, and there she was, a leper. Aaron said to Moses, "Oh, my Lord, please don't lay this sin on us, in which we have done foolishly, in which we have sinned. Please do not let her be as one of the dead, whose flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb." So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, "Please heal her, O God, I pray." The Lord said to Moses, "If her father had but spit in her face, would she not be shamed 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp for 7 days, and afterwards she may be received again." So Miriam was shut out of the people out of the camp 7 days, and the people did not journey till Miriam was brought in again. Afterward, the people moved. Somebody give me an explanation of why you think this particular event was chronicled in the inspired Word of God.
It lets us know that God spoke through Moses.
Okay. Moses was the man.
It lets us know that inspiration doesn't mean perfection. These people have been inspired. And I was thinking also that it doesn't matter your position, you can still make mistakes. Miriam and Aaron succumb to something that you'd usually expect a younger or less mature person to do, but they became jealous of their brother.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the big messages we need to take away from this, guys, is covetousness, jealousy. I think God was wanting us to see, how many times in churches have we seen deacons who want to be elders and who try to act like an elder, even though they are not physically elders? And, it's kind of a similar situation in which you've got Moses who is speaking, getting direct communication with God. And some deacon looks up and says, "Hey, I want a piece of that. I want some of that. I want to be able to do that." And God's saying, that's not your place. Your place is to do what I've told you to do. His place is what I've told him to do. And I love the fact that he gives us the reason why. He says, this is a humble servant. He goes on to call him, he is faithful in all my house. He gives the reason why. Look, Moses is doing a great thing. This is why. He's a faithful servant of God. He's a righteous man. It's kind of like Noah was described by 3 characteristics. Called him just or righteous, called him perfect in his generations, and the text said he walked with God. So over and over and over, we see righteous men being lifted up by God. Yes, in the back.
Just a question. They said that they started because he married an Ethiopian woman. Is that his first wife, or had she died, or is he marrying another wife?
That's his first.
Okay, so they're still groping. That just seems like a long ways off to still be griping about that.
Hey, brother, people will gripe about anything for a long time. Any other comments before we get into the good stuff?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yep.
So
Yes.
the Ethiopian woman is his first wife, Moses' first wife.
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, so is Midian and Ethiopia the same thing then? Because Jethro and Zipporah were in Midian, weren't they? That's where Moses went when he fled from Egypt because he killed the guy.
Hold on just a second. Let's just do a little check here. Moses' wife Zipporah came from Midian in northwest Arabia, probably had dark complexion. Numbers chapter 12, she is referred to as an Ethiopian, highlighting her beauty, obvious fact that the Ethiopians had a dark skin color. Does that help?
Yeah.
How could it Cushite. So you got the Ethiopian or Cushite would be the
same thing, just different.
Yeah. Chapter 13 of Numbers. We finally get to the part where, yes, Ms. Juanita?
There's another scripture too, Habakkuk, what is it, 3:7?
Okay.
It just says that the Cushions were the same as the Median, land of Median.
It's saying Cushite is the same as Ethiopian?
As medium.
Median.
They're mentioned in the same connection. You know,
Okay.
7. James Smith has it in his book.
And see, my Bible has got a footnote where it says Ethiopian. It's got a footnote that says Cushite. Moses, because of the Ethiopian or Cushite woman. So, is that clear as mud at this point?
About that.
Yes, no, maybe. Jared, do you understand what's going on?
Well, you ask me. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Spies are sent into Canaan. I was asking you just because I think you had that puzzled look on your face.
Yeah.
Spies sent into Canaan. Chapter 13, Lord spoke to Moses. Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving children of Israel. For each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a leader among them. So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord, all of the men who were heads of the children of Israel. Skipping on down. Verse 17. Then Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan. Said to them, go up this way into the south, and go into the mountains, see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, whether there are forests, whether they're not. Be of good courage. Bring some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the season of the first ripe grapes. So they went up, they spied out the land. Skipping on down to, let's see, verse 23, we learn that there cut down a branch with one cluster of grapes. They carried it between two of them on a pole. They also brought some pomegranates, some figs. Verse 25, they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Now they departed. They came back to Moses, Aaron, all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness. They brought back word to them and all the congregation, and they showed them the fruit of the land. Then they told them and said, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, that dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we're able to overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we're not able to go up against the people, for they're stronger than we are. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people who we saw are men of great stature. There we saw the giants, or the descendants of Anak, came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in their own sight. And so we were in their sight. Okay. How would you guys try to communicate in your own words to a non-Christian what is taking place right here? Okay, you haven't converted me yet.
They saw the product of the land, but they forgot that they had God on their side when they saw the men of great size. So they came back and gave a false report about even the fruitfulness of the land so that people wouldn't want to go in.
Okay.
And and I don't know if you're going this route, but, you know, as aliens from God, there is a promised land for us, but we have to count the costs in order to get the land, to receive the promise, I should say.
Okay. Yeah.
We're also seeing the sinfulness of fear, I think, here.
That's good. Very good. You know, is it possible to teach somebody the fact that when we take our eyes off of our spiritual goal and we focus on the physical world around us, that we lose sight, we become afraid, and therefore we don't do what God wants us to do? Is there a New Testament example of somebody taking his eyes off of... Yeah.
We just covered that last class.
I tell you, I'm good. See, one day y'all are going to say, man, he's good. Hold on, wait. Before I say I'm good, Mr. Cooper, what did you cover in your last class?
We talked about Peter asking Jesus.
There you go.
The first couple hours of the morning, if he could walk on water with him. But you know how that happens. People get nervous and get scared, take their eyes off Jesus, start sinking.
That's right. You're looking at the waves, guys. They were looking at the waves. They go to the promised land, and instead of looking at the land of milk and honey and the fact that they were given the promised land, they looked at the waves. They looked at all of the people and the fortified cities and all this negative. They were like Peter getting out of the boat. Chris.
Yeah, the quote he gave us was fear brings doubt, and doubt brings failure. That's what Denny was telling us this morning.
Very nice. See, I'm just trying to recap what Denny missed. See, y'all can tell Denny next time. Just say Brad's got your back. Anytime you mess up. All right,
Brad.
Hey.
If we can just have a quick chat about verse 32.
Sure.
I think I came across this during our Doc Hype assignment for language and research.
Yes.
So they gave out to the sons of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone, in spying it out, is a land that devours its inhabitants. And then it says, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. I haven't really had a chance to really closely look at this verse, so maybe some of the guys who studied it more closely could help me, but why is there not a difference between, I mean, they attribute this verse to two different authors. The first part of it, it is a land that devours its inhabitants, claiming it's from a different author, and then the second part of it, they say all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. They allege that there's a contradiction here, and I was just wondering, firstly, is there one, and why do they think that there is one here? I don't really see one at all when I look at it, but is there some kind of thing with the interpretation of that first part of it, the devouring of the inhabitants?
Two different styles of description. If you look at one, did the land actually devour people? The answer is no. But, what it's talking about is the peoples of the land were so big and they were able to take over their enemies, versus the second part, which is literally stated, these people were big. You've got two different ways of stating basically the same thing. But one is a descriptive analogy, one is a literal term. The people are big versus the land devours its inhabitants. Two different ways of looking at something. Yes?
Was that me or someone? Oh, sorry.
In the back. Oh, go ahead, Q.
The way that I had read that they said it was a contradiction is that they're saying in the first part that the land is bad, it devours its inhabitants, it's not fruitful at all, it's really bad, barren land. But yet, even if it's this barren, how are the people getting so big off of it, is what I read, is what they thought was the contradiction.
Yeah, that's where I was heading with it. They were saying that the people, the 10 were making a contradiction, you know, that both the land didn't produce anything that people could eat off of, and that they were of great size. So that's why they were saying, well, this must be from two different sources, because that doesn't make any sense.
But if you actually go back and you read the original text, you recognize, and why men of great wisdom don't read something for what it's worth rather than trying to read something into it. I could read that to my 9-year-old and say, Will, what do you think it means that the land is going to devour people? What's going on there? And read him that sentence, and he would completely understand what's going on. He's not going to read into it what you all just said, and that is two different opposing views of land devours its inhabitants, there's nothing there, they're going to shrivel up and die, versus, oh, by the way, these people are huge. I don't, to me, a lot of times, people with that much intellect, they got way too much time on their hands. Yep.
I don't know. It seems like it could be saying that, though, because the spies want to make it sound as bad as possible. They're saying this is a barren land with vicious, strong people. Why do we want to go in there? Let's just leave this place alone.
But here's the problem with that.
Yeah.
What do they physically have that they're holding?
The giant grapes.
That take 2 men to carry. And guys, I know some of you in that room have eaten grapes. They don't carry. It doesn't take 2 people to carry them. Can you imagine, for just a moment, if you're in front of Moses and Aaron and you bring the physical evidence to the table and you plop it down, do you think they honestly can get away then with saying, that land's not really all that good? They've just said it is truly flowing with milk and honey. Jared.
Brad, I was just looking at a few of the different words there, and I think what they do is they actually go to the word inhabitants, and they translate it settlers instead of inhabitants. Now that's an alternate a rendering of it, and
yeah.
Okay, I don't know this stuff, but I know that from looking at the doc hype, a lot of the times they pick a word and then they pick the rendering of the word that is least likely to fit well with the text. And in doing so, they create a problem where there's not one. There's not a problem here if it devours its inhabitants, or its settlers. If they render it settlers, then they're saying that the people that are already there are being devoured by the land. They're in famine. But if it's inhabitants, it's more saying, I guess, in the sense that those who are going into the land are going to be eaten up by the people that are already in there.
Right.
As they proceed into this land.
They got fortified cities.
Yeah.
They're big. Good point, though. I like the fact that you guys are mixing your classes. The fact that you are able to remember, hey, we studied a little bit of this in Doc Hype, or we studied some of this in Denny's class. That's key to learning when you're able to start merging some of this stuff together. So keep doing that. Keep bringing it up. Even if you don't think it's pertinent in this class, the fact that you're able to disseminate all the different classes together is going to make your cup overflow a lot easier, and it's going to make preaching a whole lot better for you.
Well, that brings us to verse 33 then, because we're back to the Nephilim.
Yes.
And of course, we've had a few different opinions on this by now.
Yes, we have.
So once again, we have. Do we have demon possession here, or angels coming down to earth?
Let me start out by saying I haven't researched this verse. I've researched Genesis 6 a whole lot more. I will research this verse for you guys. But where are you all at?
A bit confused.
Okay.
It would, at least to me, it would seem like they should have been wiped out in the flood and not even present.
Right. Now, were all the demons wiped out by the flood?
No.
No, we know that because of the New Testament. let's see. Let me,
I mean, it doesn't matter whether you take it as one or the other, really, because you've got a flood wiping out the Nephilim that were on the earth either way. So why are they using this term? Is it?
All right, let's think about this a couple of different ways. Do we know of, scientifically speaking, were there people who are going to be coming into the picture soon who were giants?
Yes.
Give me an example.
Goliath was one.
Goliath.
Anakim too, isn't it? Aren't they giants?
Yeah.
So we've got biblical example of men who were large. Were they demon possessed? To the best of our knowledge?
No, they're just on the wrong
No.
side.
So is it possible that these people were literal giants, meaning by that great in stature?
Yes.
Back row.
I thought that you had said that the Nephilim weren't the demon-possessed themselves, but the offspring of the demon-possessed and immortal and like a woman. So the Nephilim wouldn't necessarily be demon-possessed itself. And that actually
That's a good point.
Could one of Noah's son's wives have been a Nephilim? Because they weren't necessarily inherently evil. All the people were evil. But is it possible that one of their wives could have been a Nephilim, thus spreading that seed of the Nephilim to the next generations?
Yes. Is it possible? Yes. Chris, go ahead.
Well, I mean, isn't it also understood that certain cultures are naturally, like Americans, we tend to be a little bit bigger in stature and size than some other cultures, maybe because we do have a fruitful land. We have a land in which we have a variety of foods that are more nourishing to our bodies. And where are these people living? They're living in a land of milk, flowing with the milk
and honey, right?
And so they're, now are we thinking 14, 15 feet high, or are they 6, 7 feet? And the Israelites are really, at that time, is it not understood that man has grown in natural size over the decades and the centuries?
Yeah, with improved nutrition.
Absolutely. I mean, the general stature of a for instance, an Asian person, much smaller in stature than, say, a German person. And some of that is going to be environmental, some of it is going to be genetics. So when I read here, we saw the giants, the descendants of Anak came from the giants. We were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. I'm not, and again, I'm going to do some research over the next 2 or 3 days. I'm not bringing demons back into this because I don't think that I don't read that into the text. I do read it into Genesis 6 because it is very explicit where it talks about sons of God, daughters of men. You don't read that here. So is it possible that we have a cultural group of people who were known as being large and that's what they're talking about? And is it also possible that group of people were, I think oftentimes we forget that these people were not that far removed from Noah. In fact, if you think about Shem could talk to Isaac, they were contemporaries. So we're not that far removed. Would these people have known the stories, the accounts of what happened with the original Nephilim? Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, let me give you a modern day example. If I say the words the Bloods and the Crips to you, what immediately comes to mind? A negative connotation. Now, if I tell you that I met a guy who is a Christian who used to be in the Bloods or Crips, kind of a different perspective of that person, correct? Same thing kind of going on here. that culture, that generation of people, you can imagine they had a pretty negative connotation stuck to their name. Just like the Canaanites are going to have a negative connotation to their name, and on and on and on. So is it possible that these people came back realizing there's a tall group of people, oh, by the way, those are Nephilims, remember what happened with them last time?
Yeah.
And they said, we don't even want to get involved with that. Keely?
I kind of answered my own question, because in chapter 6 it says that they were on the earth in those days and also afterward. So somebody must have carried on that line.
Okay.
I was confused by the fact that they were there again. But
what about, okay, in answering and talking to you guys specifically about this, it goes on to say we were like grasshoppers in our own sight. What are they trying to get across?
They're going to get squashed.
Okay.
Well, they say,
is it
they say their own sight and also in their sight. So, you know, they don't have a big view of themselves as being God's people or anything like that. They're just seeing themselves as being small. They may have taken some abuse or being teased by these people if they're making a statement that they were grasshoppers in their sight. But to say that in their own sight they were weak or small, it's just showing their lack of faith.
Okay, let's set up the paradigm. Okay, you got a group of people. They were slaves. They were brought out of Egypt. All they've been eating up to this point is manna, which, while it sustained them, it apparently did not have all of the properties of every other food type. These people, on the other hand, have all kinds of nutritious foods. They've been living in a place that's got all of this land of milk and honey growing. They apparently came from a group that was known to be large. So the analogy that he is setting up before us here, I think, is more of a visual picture for us to realize you got this massive group of people who are large. They're big stature. You're talking Shaquille O'Neal size or better. And then you've got a group of people that looks like modern day, you know, you name the culture, but maybe modern day China. Smaller in stature, probably not as physically fit, not as meaty. And he's using this term grasshopper as a compare and contrast to what we see there versus what we see here. Obviously did not mean they were literal grasshoppers. Yes, Mr. Cooper?
It's kind of funny how you look at this and you think, how can these still be the same people later on that produced David? I mean, you know, it's just kind of odd, because I was like, okay, how can they even think of this? But then you have to realize this is before David, this is before Goliath, this is before all the other major victories that boost their head up so much that they're, oh, we're so great, we're so great. Right now they're still weak-minded.
How can this be a group of people that's bringing Jesus Christ onto the earth?
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine God at this point looking down and going, good grief, are we ever going to get there? I mean, all you guys do is complain, and you're weak, and yet every step of the way I've been with you. So, looking again back at chapter 14, the congregation lifted up their voices and cried. The people wept that night. All the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt. And again, you gotta, I mean, if you're Moses at this point, you gotta think to yourself, you know what? I'm about ready just to let him take some of you. We got Aaron and Miriam over here saying that they want an equal part. We got people groaning because they don't have meat, and then when God gives them meat, they just munch on and they don't wait to hear his instruction. Now we got people that want to return back to Egypt. You know what I would have told him? I said, Delta is ready when you are. Pack your bags. But what does Moses do? He's a bigger man than I am. He fell on his face and pleaded for him. Look very carefully at verse 5. Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation. The land we passed through to spy out is exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he'll bring us into the land. Give it to us, the land that flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of their land, for they are our bread. Their protection is departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. And the glory of God appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people reject me? And how long will they not believe me with all of my signs which I performed among them? I'll strike them with pestilence and disinherit them. I'll make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. And Moses said to the Lord, then the Egyptians will hear it, for by your might you brought these people up from among them, and they'll tell it to the inhabitants of this land. They have heard that you, Lord, are among these people, and that you, Lord, are seen face to face, and your cloud stands above them, and you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Now if you kill these people as one man, then the nations which have heard of your fame will speak, saying, because the Lord was not able to bring this people to the land which he swore to them, therefore he killed them in the wilderness. Now I pray, let the power of my Lord be great, just as you have spoken, saying, the Lord is long-suffering and abundant in mercy. What is Moses' argument right here?
You have to do what you said you're going to do.
Okay, you got to do what you said you're going to do. Although, technically, he could have, killed 99% of them and brought up a greater nation, as he was saying. Technically. But what is he saying?
Well, a couple of things. Moses is saying, all the people are going to say, look, you couldn't be the powerful God. You couldn't do what you said you were going to do. You just took the people out and let them die in the wilderness. That's what Moses is saying. My question is, if God made of Moses a great nation, Moses was not of the tribe of Judah. God had already told Judah that the scepter would...
Oh, yeah. He would have to keep, in order for prophecy to be fulfilled, he would have to keep a couple of people from the tribes. That's why I said 99%. We would have to keep the Levites, a few Levites. We'd have to keep, basically God would say, okay, you two, y'all get to stay. Everybody else, goodbye. And then bring up from that group of, say, 30 people, another great nation. Could he have done that? Absolutely. But think about this, guys. If God Almighty cannot take a group of people and deliver them, what is that saying about God being all-powerful? See, Moses is almost pointing out here, look, in order for you to prove just how powerful you are, your omniscience, your omnipotence, your omnipresence, you have got to follow through with this plan and show this rebellious people just how powerful you are and get them across the Jordan. Yes, Chris.
Well, it's obvious that he's not telling God that that's what he has to do. God understands. I see this as now a response to the previous time that Moses complained himself in this same manner. But yet, what does he do this time? He's stronger, and he lets God know, we can do this. We're going to wait for this. And we know that it's not because God had a weakness, obviously, but it just shows that Moses obviously is grown.
But look at how Moses frames the argument, and I think he does this well, guys. He says, all these people around us, and by that we're talking neighboring countries, they know what you did in Egypt. They know you were able to do this. Now, if this fails, who is ultimately going to receive the big fat F or the failure notice? Or who ultimately didn't get the job done?
God.
God. Now, God didn't need to be reminded of that. God knew that. You know, Moses is not arguing his case here because God needs to argue his case. But he is using some great logic to say, look, you got this group of people, all of these other nations have looked on you already and you've grown in fame. If we fail now, then think about where that, yes, you can build a new nation, but it's going to cause them to question your power, your might, your etc., if we have to rise up a whole new group of people. Let's get it done with what we've got. Let's take a basketball team that's not the Chicago Bulls in the 1980s, and let's take them to the national playoffs. Mr. Cooper.
I'm going to pull a little out right quick. Can't you see how cool it is that Moses can just talk to God like this? Like friends? I mean, just to see that, to know that we can do the same thing through Jesus, it's just have a conversation with him. I mean, that's just so cool.
Yes, it is cool. I would have to agree with that.
As long as he doesn't say, I'm going to strike you down with a pistol.
Exactly. Again, notice we're given characteristics of God. He's long-suffering, abundant in mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but he by no means clears the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children of the third and fourth generation. Pardon the iniquity of this people, I pray, according to the greatness of your mercy, just as you have forgotten this people from Egypt, even until now. Lord said, I pardoned according to your word. But truly as I live, all of the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord, because all of these men who have seen my glory, and the signs which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, they have put me to the test, now these 10 times, and have not heeded my voice. They certainly shall not see the land of which I swore to their fathers, nor shall any of those who rejected me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him, has followed me fully, I'll bring into the land where he went, and his descendants shall inherit it. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwell in the valley. Tomorrow turn and move out into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. So guys, it's at this stage of the game that everything changes. God says, okay, Moses, I hear what you're saying. I can appreciate what you're saying. But they really have kind of chapped me off by disrespecting me over and over again. So here's how we're going to resolve this problem. We're going to resolve this problem by me taking their children into the land of milk and honey, which I promised. But these people, they're fixing to walk around for 40 years until they drop over dead. They have just pronounced a death sentence on their own heads because they wouldn't do what they were supposed to do. Yep.
It's just cool that God doesn't lump punishment together. Even though all the people of Israel wouldn't get to see the land, he said, oh, except for Caleb, because he was faithful to me.
Right. I always remember whatever God does, approves, commands, it's hard for us to understand the idea of him being a righteous judge, because in all reality, we're not. As human beings, we have biases, we have emotions, and yet God is the perfect judge. Ultimately, whatever he says or commands is right and good. We will stop right there, guys. I hope that most of you are working on your papers. They are due very soon. Also, start working on your debate topics. And I will see you next Tuesday. Hope y'all have a great weekend. Everybody staying in town over the weekend?
Yep.
Y'all got plans this weekend?
Homework.
Look at each other.
We're going to do your homework campaign.
Call
And
it
do that
papers.
paper.
Camping in the library.
Camping in the library.
We're also doing
Y'all are going to eat?
Oh, yeah.
The Word of God.
Y'all aren't going to eat with the Wilkies?
That was a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, all right. She can't cook, can she?
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you guys very much. In all seriousness, guys, keep a smile on your face. We'll see you on Tuesday, Lord willing. And don't forget, who made you?